Hi guys, today we discuss Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Muhammad Iqbal. Both Muhammad Iqbal and Muhammad Ali Jinnah belonged to families that had converted to Islam from Hinduism. Both of them began as eclectic and open-minded individuals but became radicalized as time went by. Muhammad Iqbal wrote the famous Qawmi Tarana or Tarana-e-Hind, Sare Jahan se Acha Hindustan Hamara. However, his respect for Hindus did not last long, and within 10 years, he had abandoned his song and graduated to Chino Arab Hamara, Hindustan Hamara, Muslim hai hum, Watan hai Sara Jahan Hamara. He also briefly experimented with Ijtihad or Arabic Ijtihad or reform among Muslims, but even this reform did not extend to the fundamentals of Islam and remained confined to modern education in the manner of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. In December 1930, the Muslim League held its All India Conference at Allahabad or now Prayagraj, with none other than Muhammad Iqbal presiding. The poet-philosopher emphasized what would become the underlying facet of the League's Pakistan pitch. The principle of European democracy cannot be applied to India without recognizing the fact of communal groups. This is a quote. This is Allama Iqbal's presidential address at Allahabad 1930. The principle of European democracy cannot be applied to India without recognizing the fact of communal groups. The Muslim demand for the creation of a Muslim India within India is therefore perfectly justified. Indeed, Iqbal went on to call for just that, specifically proposing the creation of a separate Muslim state in the subcontinent, carved out of northwestern regions more or less equivalent to Pakistan's present-day boundaries. I would like to see the Punjab northwest, now we are going back to his quote, I would like to see the Punjab, Northwest Frontier Province, Sindh, Balochistan amalgamated into a single state. This, he said, was the quote-unquote the final destiny of the Muslims, at least of Northwest India. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a brilliant lawyer who had set up his practice in Bombay, now Mumbai, for mostly criminal cases. He later blossomed into a fine constitutional lawyer. He was a leading figure in the Indian National Congress, favoring the petition and constitutional approach towards getting more concessions from the British. His stature declined after the arrival of Mahatma Gandhi, and he finally quit the Congress over the involvement of the Muslim religious leadership with Congress in the matter of the Khilafat movement. He stuck to constitutional methods, even as he maintained his distance from the religious leadership. Wow! His stature declined after Mahatma Gandhi. He quit the Congress over the involvement of the Muslim religious leadership with the Congress in the matter of Khilafat movement. So he didn't want that. Jinnah remained in Britain from 1930 to 1934, practicing in the Privy Council. Iqbal, on the other hand, grew close to Jinnah and, as mentioned earlier, actively canvassed for the two-nation theory. He wrote to Jinnah in 1937, a separate federation of Muslim provinces, reformed on the lines I have suggested above, is the only course by which we can secure a peaceful India and save Muslims from the domination of non-Muslims. Why should not the Muslims of Northwest India and of Bengal be considered as nations entitled to self-determination, just as other nations in India and outside India are? Jinnah took part in the roundtable conferences in Britain as a representative of the Muslim League. He took counsel from Iqbal, seeing him not only as a senior leader of the Punjab Muslim League but also as a man of letters and as a barrister senior to him. Iqbal was also part of the Muslim League delegation under Aga Khan that met the Viceroy in 1906. They projected Muslims as a class of people separate from Hindus and thus deserving of separate treatment. As we progress, we will find that the playing victim is a practiced art of the Muslim leadership that comes up again and again. Jinnah in his earlier years was not in favor of separate electorates, yet his acquisitive character is evident from the fact that he himself became a member of the Legislative Council from a Muslim seat in 1909. He was instrumental in drafting the Lucknow Pact of 1916 between the Muslim League and the Congress. The latter made a very reasonable case for separate electorates for minorities in every province, so as to have separate electorates for Hindus and non-Hindus in provinces such as Bengal and Punjab. Rationality dictated that too, but the League would stick to pan-India Muslim and non-Muslim constituencies, insisting on a privileged position for Muslims everywhere. The British were fine with this proposal as they preferred to have this divide. The famous divide and rule policy of Britain always encouraged Muslims to demand more and more by highlighting grievances that were very rarely real and were mostly imaginary. Jinnah was a rather unlikely leader of the Muslims. He was more British in his tastes and lifestyle, than even the British themselves. It was a classic case of being a mental slave of the British. While Mahatma Gandhi wore the dress of a sadhu to identify himself with the masses, Jinnah made a deliberate attempt to stay as far away from the look of a religious Muslim as possible. He loved his whiskey and ate pork. He never offered namaz. The joke is that he did not even know the difference between Shia's namaz and the Sunni namaz. When he did have to perform the namaz due to political compulsions, he was often seen offering Sunni namaz even though he was himself a Shia. He was born in an Ismaili Shia family but later converted to the 12-verse Shia. It is said that even this conversion was probably an oversight because he would not have known the distinction between the two. It must be said that when it came to politics, the Muslims made no bones about whether the leader followed true Islamic practices or not. Unlike Mahatma Gandhi, Jinnah was under no compulsion to demonstrate a greater moral character to his followers. Islam is a political religion and it understands quite well who is most suitable to play its politics better than the politics of the kafir. It was against this background that the British enacted the Government of India Act 1935 and called for provincial elections granting suffrage to about 1/6 of the adult public. The act itself was all hocus pocus that did not satisfy anyone. Most of Jinnah's 14 points were accepted. It also proposed 11 provincial legislatures, 6 of them were bicameral. Sindh, Orissa and Bihar were constituted as separate provinces. The provisions to establish a federation gave 33% representation. Establish a federation gave 33% representation to the princely states and kept a provision for accession. This is the provision that was used by Sardar Patel to make the provinces accede to India. The act was deliberately slanted against the Congress and thereby against Hindus. The British kept a diarchy at the center while conceding a fair bit of autonomy at the level of the provinces.